A man without standards is like a nation without borders. The most powerful thing you can do as a man is build an empire within inside yourself, plant your flag, and stand by it proudly. Fellas, gentlemen, welcome or welcome back to another video. The most feared man is the man that has standards. Now, I've spoken to you gentlemen about how, to put it frank, I've lived all over the world. I speak multiple languages and I've always been a scholar and student of life. I've always just been a man that enjoys opening my mind, shutting the fuck up and just listening, learning from these different societies that I've hopped in and spent time in, and just, observing the dichotomies, observing the differences, right? And one thing that I found to be true is that, for one, masculinity is under attack, right? Now, I'm not one of these extremist either that says that you have to go all the way in one direction, but what I am talking about is honor, valor. These type of things are really dwindling with, the globalization that we're undergoing with certain ideologies and, acceptances of certain things. Now, you can argue that, but the truth is, I would argue that many of you watching this right now, your perspective might not be broad enough. You see, before I started to really experience different societies and lifestyles, I had a specific scope, a specific view. But as I spent years and years of living in different societies, connecting with people, making friends, I just took notes. I just took notes of certain things that, I noticed how certain people moved, things of that nature. And one thing that I couldn't deny, and one thing that you can't deny, right, even if it's unbeknownst to you, is that when a man sets standards for himself, he's powerful. Not only is he powerful, he's feared. So that being said, in this video, fellas, as all my videos, I open the room up for some healthy dialogue. You can comment your sentiments down below. This is a video that I want you guys to really think, engage. So that being said, let's get into it. When you look at the modern man, we're timid, docile, uncertain of ourselves, addicted to erotic content, right? I'm not exempt. I've spoken about in the past my, I wouldn't say struggles, but yeah, I partook in watching certain content, right? We all do. And when you just look at the current state of man, many men are unfulfilled. But what's interesting is that, contrary, many women are also unfulfilled, right? Now, when we look at certain ideologies and certain movements like the feminist movement, right? It's astonishing. I've spoken to you guys before. If you go watch a lot of my mindset and dating videos, I've spoken to you guys about how on the chassis, the frame, biologically, women are the same regardless of what society I've lived in, right? I've lived in Italy. I've spent time in Iceland, which I'm going to get into a little bit later in the video. I lived, in Colombia, through Latin America. I'm quite fond of African countries. I'm quite fond of Eastern Europe as well, right? But what I've noticed is that women are unfulfilled, men are unfulfilled. Now, there's certain standards that have fallen in previous years, but when a man is, bold, right? Cuando un hombre es un berraco and he stands on something, he becomes a threat, right? Everybody looks at him like an extremist, even if you're speaking from a place of being, open, right? But they'll start to throw stones at you when you respect yourself as a man, when you truly take care of yourself, when you don't settle for the norm. I remember I was spending some time in Iceland a couple of years ago. This was in 2022. I was spending some time in Iceland, and I'm quite fond of the Icelandic people, and I spent some time in the villages, as I mentioned before, the small villages. I've also spent some time in like their major cities like Reykjavik. And I was having a conversation with somebody, with a lady, and she was saying that it's okay for women to sleep with 50 men. And I was like, absolutely not. That's not okay, right? And so you can throw the argument of, well, Dudley, you've openly said before that you've been with a lot of women in the past and things of that nature. And though that is very true, there simply are double standards, and it is what it is, right? Now, the fact is, men and women are not equal. Now, when I say men and women are not equal, I'm not talking about in terms of civil rights or value or in the workplace or just as human value. No, obviously we're equal humans. What I'm saying is we have certain roles in society that are the fabric and make of society. For example, somebody breaks into the house. Yes, I have to put my life on the line for my family and my woman, and I would do that, gladly. Maybe not gladly. Obviously, I'm going to be afraid going down the stairs too, which every real man would actually admit we do feel fear. But what differentiates a man that's a coward from a man that is truly strong, right, is a man exercises courage in that moment. And that's our duty as men. In that scenario, we're not equal, right? Some could argue, well, Dudley, women can do what men can do. In some cases, that may be true, but that's not the whole perspective, because the fact is men do certain things better than women, and women do certain things better than men, right? Now, in order for us to have this conversation in an intellectual manner, fellas, I need you guys to have a grand macro perspective, right? I would hope that the majority of my audience here are intellectuals with sound minds and with open minds, right? Now, when we talk about a man having standards, I'm going to bring it back to the Iceland situation. For me, I don't accept women that have been with over, honestly, 5 men. If you watch my vetting video, which is in my dating playlist after this one, where I talk about the process of how I vet women, right, through my experiences of traveling all over the world and living all over the world, I have a certain standard for myself, right? Now, am I a man that has experienced a lot of women? I've been candid. I've experienced women all over the world, right? Do I brag about that? Is that something cool? No, I never brag about it. That's not something cool. That's not something to beat my chest over. It's just me being honest and candid with my audience like I always am. Now, you see, when we talk about a woman getting penetrated by multiple men and a man, doing what he does, there is a double standard. And to be honest, I just have a standard to where if I'm going to claim a woman publicly, if I'm going to marry a woman, if I'm going to, spill my seed and build a family with a woman, that's just my standard, right? Now, many men feel the way that I do, but when we say it verbally, that's a problem, you see? But if you are a man that's certain of yourself and you build yourself up to a certain echelon, yeah, you can have a little bit more freedom speaking openly, right? They say that it's free speech, but we all know that that also comes with consequences. So I say all that to say this is that when a man has standards, he really controls his life. But you also have to know what comes with that, right? Turmoil comes with that, judgment comes with that, right? That's just the honest truth, fellas. Take that into account. So when I was living in Iceland, and as I do in every country that I've lived in, I take notes, I mingle with the people, I study the culture, right? And what's fascinating to me about Iceland and other Nordic countries is countries that were historically violent and masculine, right? That were predicated on dominance and, to put it frank, savagery. That feminism is so rampant in these Nordic countries. Now, I'm not here to say whether that's bad or not. That's not what this conversation is for. I do believe in equal rights. Absolutely, people should be treated equally, obviously. But it's just fascinating. I'm always just observing, not judging, just observing, right? I have an open mind. I like to learn. And it's interesting to see a society like the Nordic societies, take on the ideologies of feminism. To me, that's just fascinating for that type of society, right? Now, when I was living in Italy, I spent some time living in Italy. I spent some time in Rome. I spent some time in Milan, Turin. Now, when I say spend some time, I mean months. And the majority of my time I spent was in a little village in Italy where I just observed the social dynamics. Now, in Italian culture, the family is really the keystone of society. I guess you could say that that's the keystone of every society, which is why it seems that's so under attack in the USA, which is a whole nother conversation. But in comparison to Icelandic society and Italian society, masculinity is a little bit different. In Italian society, there's pride in grooming yourself and style and fashion. Men still go to work. Now, if you go in the north, like in Milan, because it's more of a modern city, things of that nature, and Western ideologies has permeated a bit, right? They still have more traditional customs, but certain ideas are shifting. Men still have standards for themselves, right? But now there's this internal conflict. And so what I find interesting, fellas, is regardless of what society that you go to, a man that has standards for himself, that's a dangerous man. And to be frank, that's a feared man. Because where the world is heading right now, especially with globalization, with Western media being accessible to everybody now, and to be honest, I'm not too fond of Western ideologies. Even though I was raised in the USA, I'm a Haitian man and I have African values, right? I'm not here to say whether that's right or wrong. I'm just letting you know what it is. If you have standards for yourself as a man these days, for the life that you want to live, the kind of women that you want to involve yourself with, the kind of brothers that you want to, have certain beliefs, right? You're a threat. And I need you guys to understand that. The truth is, a man that is confident enough to set standards for themselves, that's a threat because you can't be controlled. And people fear what they can't control, especially in this modern day and age where everybody has a wandering eye on them due to, let's talk about it. We know that the government is, listening to everything that we say via these technological devices that were being monitored. Certain societies such as China already have certain social systems that are kind of coming into play. Cameras can recognize your face. Data is the real hustle these days. Data is worth more than gold. Everybody's farming for your data. All of these applications. Keep this in mind, fellas. When something is free, you are the commodity. You think Instagram is free just to be free? No. You know how much data IG has on you? You know how much data Facebook has on you? But here's the thing. Many of you aren't even aware of this because you're too distracted. And why are you distracted? Well, it's because you're living in survival mode. You see, what happens is society starts to, just worry about the simple things like food, man, inflation. All of this is happening. They keep you distracted with media. Things are going on to keep you in a low frequency. They keep you distracted with entertainment. When I was in Italy and I spent a good amount of time in Rome, just really soaking in the energy and just thinking to myself, wow, people would really just come here to be entertained by the slaughtering of other people. And then you look at modern day sports and you realize that ain't nothing but the Coliseum. Just seeing people distracted. Like they said back in those days, you give people bread and entertainment and keep them, entertained and distracted, and you can control them. That ain't no different, fellas. Listen, I've gotten around grown men before, and all they want to talk about is sports. Grown men wearing other men's jerseys, other men's last name on their backs. And I gotta be honest, I'm an outlier. You see, I've been able to snap out of this reality and think from a macro perspective. I'm not portraying myself to be this high and mighty guy. Look, I have my issues, I have my faults. I have to get better myself, man. But what I'm saying is, fellas, we can't waste time. You have to set standards for yourself, down to the nitty gritty, down to how you dress yourself, how you take care of yourself. I've spoken to you guys about taking care of your appearance, of your teeth, making sure that you floss. Little things that seem simple, but you'd be amazed at how many men don't do it. How many men don't floss their teeth? They have plaque in their teeth. Your breath stinks. You're not in shape. You're not capable, right? You can't defend yourself. You can't fight. The simple principles of masculinity, many gentlemen lack. And I had to look at myself in the mirror and said, Dud, you got to get better. You can't fight. You're watching prawn, right? Like you're not looking healthy at one point. And I had to just really start loving myself and building the empire within inside myself. And me building an empire within inside myself empowered me to go serve other people. And as men, we all come here to serve. I believe, one of the keystones of masculinity is service. I don't have any ego when I say that I'm a servant. You say that to some men and they have egos and say, oh, I'm not no servant. Yes, you are. We serve our families. We serve our societies, right? Once men stop serving, kingdoms collapse. Once, men stop having standards for ourselves, empires collapse, and every empire eventually collapse. You look at the Roman Empire. What happened, right? They reigned for over 1,000 years. They collapsed because they started to compromise their standards. You can look at the Ottoman Empire, right? The Mongol Empire, the USA. We don't want to talk about that now, do we? If you are a true scholar, if you study history, if you see cycles, because life is cyclic, like I said before, you can see the signs of certain empires and strongholds collapsing. Once certain, beliefs and ideologies start to become compromised, right? And flexible and malleable. I'm not here to say whether these beliefs are right or just. I'm just some stranger on the internet speaking to a camera right now, a piece of plastic and metal. And you just happen to stumble across my video here. But the fact is, a man that has standards has always been dangerous. A man that has standards has always been powerful. And men who have standards are the ones that truly elevate society. They're the ones that truly spearhead. They're the ones that truly, lead empires, grow empires. Whether you want to talk about imperialism being wrong or not, right? That's not the point. The point is when you have standards and when a group of men get together with, aligned standards and beliefs, this is how kingdoms are started, how they thrive, right? This is what conquest was, men having certain standards to go out and expand and to dominate, right? I mean, this is imperialism in a nutshell. I mean, that's the honest truth. Certain men have standards, they go do things, whether it's right or not, whether it's bloodshed or not. You feel me? So this is a conversation, fellas, that if you're not intellectually there, perhaps you may not be able to have, perhaps this may not be the time for you to have this conversation. But if you are there, I really invite you to comment down below and truly engage. Standards separate the exceptional men from the average men. The average man is just going with the flow. He's malleable, right? He doesn't have a spine. He can't control himself emotionally. He can't control himself physically. He conducts himself in an overly fervent manner, right? But the exceptional man has standards for himself. Standards about the men that he keeps next to him, his brothers. Standards about the woman that he dates. He's not going to be with a woman that is a harlot. Standards about how he conducts himself, how he takes care of himself, what he accepts for his life, how hard he works, educating himself, making himself a cultured Renaissance man, a new man, constantly rebirthing, constantly adapting, walking around with conviction, knowing who he is as a man. You'd be amazed at how many men don't know who they are, fellas. Trust me, I talk to hundreds of you guys each month. And so my question to you, fellas and gentlemen, is what standards do you have for yourself? Do you honor yourself? Are you maximizing your life right now? Are you truly taking care of yourself and your loved ones and your family? Are you accepting lackluster in any area of your life? Are you even aware of what areas of your life you need to work on? Are you the best that you can be right now? Are you the best that you've ever been? I can say without a doubt, unequivocally, that I am currently the best version of myself that I've ever been. And I have a long way to get better. And that's where all the fun is. Though I'm the best version of myself that I've ever been, we got a lot of work to do, fellas. I have a lot of work to do. I have so many ways I can get better. And that's the exciting part about this, is expanding the borders of your life. You started the empire. You've taken certain lands and, you've built, you've expanded. But now it's about truly dominating. And once you dominate, and once you are in the position of great grandeur and you reign, now it's about sustaining that dominance. We need to go conquer the whole planet, right? As Genghis Khan wanted to. He said the only thing was that my life was too short. I couldn't conquer more. Well, fellas, life is short in the grand scheme of things. And you have a certain amount of time, the hyphen between your born date and your death date. Are you going to expand? Are you going to conquer? What standards do you have for yourself? Is it one of excellence or is it one of mediocrity? I told you guys already, if you want to be an average man, that's fine, but this isn't the channel for you. What will be said about your kingdom? What will be said about your empire? How will you reign? Will you be righteous? Huh? How do you actually move as a man when there's nobody around? What kind of standards do you really have for yourself? What do you accept? What are you accepting right now in life? You know the answer. You got to get real honest with yourself. If you were to be given everything that you say that you want, could you handle it right now? Or would you fall victim to imposter syndrome? Does your paradigm match that of what you say you want? A lot of you gentlemen want the top 1% lifestyle, but if you were handling it right now, you'd probably fuck it up. And you know it. So what that tells me is that there's a discrepancy between who you say you want to be and who you are right now, which would mean that you need to get to work. What standards do you set for yourself? A man that has standards for himself, that's the new anomaly.